Okay, Omalade, you have the floor. You can take up the challenge and get ready to wow us. And please, guys, write your questions down. Answer a whole lot of things, and later get ready to answer more. I think this screen is still having, still not. Guys, can you see our screen? Is it visible enough?
I
Yes.
tried to.
No.
You can, because I tried to actually, what was it called? Increase the font, but I was unable to. Can you see
Okay.
this? Is this better?
I think just leave it at the white,
Okay.
but there
I thought
should be a way.
I saw somewhere where under your settings, I saw where they said you can increase the editor font size
Go
or
to
something like.
Is the
Yes.
text editor font size, but it's not, I don't know, it's not coming up. I've tried it.
and
I've
you're
even
using
googled it.
Jupyter Lab.
Yes, I'm
You
using
love
Jupyter Lab.
you don't want to use Colab.
I've tried
Okay.
Jupyter. I think that's
Lab.
Okay,
Usually
no
I
all
use
big
right.
people
Jupyter Lab
use
because
Jupyter now.
I
We're
have
still learning.
some
We are
other things
learning.
I'm doing. So
No,
that's why.
Jupyter Lab is more of like it's just like Colab, just like it's connected online. It's more of like it's almost the same thing here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But can you manage it?
Me, I can manage it here, but I think some persons that are
Everybody.
used.
Yes, continue.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So we did question 5 the last class. So question 6. I think question 6 is like the simplest, like of all the questions that
Please, so
I
is
think
that
that.
not is simple? You might think it's simple, but some persons will struggle for it for days. Please,
No,
don't say it's
I
simple.
don't say. I didn't say it's simple. I said it's the simplest of all the questions. Like, it's not simple, but I think it's the simplest because it's just a summation, right? So I know we have learned how to define a function, right? So we have to use the def word, then the name of our function. Now, here the name of our function is addition. So from the name of the function, we have an idea of what we are planning to do. So addition, that means we want to, there's an addition somewhere around the line. So the question asked us to define a function which takes in 2 integer parameters. So from here we know that our function is a parametric function. That means it's taking in parameters. It's the argument is not empty, the brackets. Now this bracket here that you can see here, for non-parametric functions, now this bracket will be empty. You're not putting anything in it. But for parametric functions, the bracket is not empty. So it's asking us to define a function that takes in 2 integer parameters. And what are integers? Integers are whole numbers. They can be negative integers, can be positive integers. So we know that there's no decimal points, or our function is not supposed to take in any decimal point because we are asked to put in 2 integer parameters. Now the function will return, keyword return. So we return the sum of these parameters. So when you say return, you know it has to return something. Yes, so now we have defined our function as addition. So the 2 parameters we put in n_1, n_2. You can name your parameter any name that you want to name it. You can name it sun, you can name it moon, you can name it cockroach, you can name it spider, you can name it anything, but just make sure it's something that is that can be related to something that someone will understand, especially if you do not have comments beside your function. So n1, n2, then so it's supposed to return the sum of these parameters. So now there is where this keyword return comes in. Return gives you, from the name, it gives your function the result of what you have written it. So when you call that function, what you're returning is, so that's the result that is supposed to show. So it's returning this function. Once you have done everything that you're supposed to do, it's supposed to return the summation of n_1 and n_2. So now addition of, we can now call our function. So addition of 20 and 45 will give you 65. If you add 7, any number is going to give you the number, because you've already returned the summation of your two parameters that you have entered into the function. So basically that's what our function does. So that's why I said it's like one of the simplest questions here. It's not too complicated like the other ones we've been doing so far. So that's that about question 6. So is there any question?
No question.
Please, hope I'm not talking to myself, Sha.
No, we are here. We are here. It's quite clear.
You can continue. There's no question from me.
All right, so I can continue. All right, okay. So now to question 7.
Sorry.
Wait, someone has messed up his hand.
Oh yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, the question I have is not particularly for you, it's for ARTVION.
Okay.
So I hope you're listening.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay. I am trying the same thing on PyDraw that it's only saying returning program finished and not the actual sum.
Can you share yours?
Again?
Can you share yours? You can use a screenshot and post it in the group, the chat rooms. I will see what is going on.
All right, I'll do that. You can continue.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm coming, please. So you can still see my screen, Ba?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you. So now question 7. Define a function taking 3 numeric parameters. Function will calculate the difference between each pairs and return the minimum of these differences. You know, I used to say something that if you don't understand English, you cannot understand mathematics like that. People used to laugh when I say that, but it's kind of true. It's kind of true. Because in cases like this now, someone will be like, what do you mean by calculate difference between each pairs? What do you mean by all this? But a way you can actually solve these things is to take the question line after line. You know, like Bible says, line upon line, precept upon precept. You just take it line by line. So now the first one, it says define a function taking 3 numeric parameters. Now, numeric means numeric. Numeric, okay. So numeric means numeric. That means you cannot take in a string.
What do you have?
Okay, can I continue? Okay. So you cannot take in a string. You cannot take in anything that is not a number. So that's what numeric means number. So again, we can see it says define a function taking 3 numeric parameters. Again, we can see that we are taking in parameters. So we see that it's a parametric function. Now we can go to the next line if we understand the first line, which is that. So the function will calculate the difference between each pairs. So now when we see pairs, we know that pairs is talking about two things, like a couple. So when you say you have a pair of shoes, that means you have your left leg and your right leg, or maybe 2 left leg or 2 right leg. But when you talk about pairs, you know that they're talking about 2 things to become one, 2 becomes 1. So kind of like that. So a pair of shoes, we know that we have 2 shoes in quotes. A pair of trousers, we know that we have 2 trousers, like that. So calculate the difference between each pair. So we are taking them 2 and calculating their differences. Now you have to return the minimum of these differences. So when you take the differences between each pairs, you understand, so you have to return the minimum, like the smallest. So now we are taking in 3 numeric parameters. So say we have number A, B, C. I know I'm using A, B, C to give the name of my parameters, but remember they are numeric parameters. So when you are calling the function, you're not putting ABC, you're putting numbers. But this ABC here is just to give a name to the parameters. They are not the actual parameters. You understand? So taking in 3 numeric parameters. So when you are calling your functions, you know that you are putting in numeric parameters, you're putting in numbers. It can be floats, it can be integers, but they are numeric. Now, so we have to calculate the difference between each pair. So that means you are looking for the difference between A, B, the difference between B, C, and the difference between A and C. A and B is a pair in this tuple, this function that we can see here. B and C is another pair. A and C is another pair, right? So you have to take different pieces. So we are looking at 3 numbers at the end, and we have to get the minimum. So the hints here now, our lecturer, our Oga ARTVION, he gave us some hints. He said we should use absolute value to calculate differences. Now, for some of us that know mathematics, I want to believe we all did maths one way or the other. So absolute value, when you say something has absolute value, that means you're taking in, if the number is a negative number, say the absolute value of -2 is 2. So you're simply removing the negative from the part. So absolute value of +2 is 2. Absolute value of -2 is 2. Absolute value of -5 is 5. So when you say the absolute value is this, you put the number between 2 straight lines. So when you say that, you're talking about the absolute value. So absolute value removes the minus in front of any number and just gives you the positive integer. Albeit if it's a negative integer or a positive integer, it gives you the positive value of that integer. Now, so we have functions in Python. We have the absolute value function. We have minimum. So like he already gave us the hint, he said use absolute value to calculate the difference. ABS is absolute. So the function in Python that calculates absolute value is ABS. And the function in Python that calculates minimum value for something is MIN. That is the function name. If you put minimum there, it will not work. Python only recognizes MIN, that's mean. If you put absolute here, it's not going to work. Python only recognizes ABS. Once it sees ABS, it knows that you're asking for the absolute value of that number. So once again, what do? We define our function, give it a name that someone will kind of understand what you're trying to do. You know, my last explanation, I said functions in Python. Once you see a function in Python, you kind of know what that function is going to do. So now if you are writing a function in Python, you should try and, for someone that wants to read your code, try and write the function name so that the person also has an idea of what your function does, so that you don't, Python did not confuse us. Let us not confuse other people too. Sure you get. So we define it. So minimum difference. So even without going through the code, we kind of have an idea that, okay, we are looking for something like a minimum difference. We don't really know of what exactly, but we know that it has to do with mean and difference, right? So now we put in our parameters A, B, C, because we are taking in how many parameters? 3 parameters. So say now what I did, I gave a variable name for the absolute value of ABS. For the absolute value of B and A. Then I gave another name V for the absolute value of C minus B. Now, you know the reason why we're using absolute value. A minus B is not B minus A. Is not usually B minus A. A times B is B times A. A plus B is B plus A. But A minus B is not B minus A. A divided by B is not B divided by A. There's something that is called in maths, I can't remember, either it's associative or something, I can't remember, either associative or commutative or something like that, Sham. So that's why we're using the absolute value, because we know that if we say A minus B and we say B minus A, like if you look at this example here, 8 minus 5 is 3, 5 minus 8 is minus 3. They are not the same thing. So that's why we just say, okay, let's just get the absolute value. So when we get 3, if we do A minus B, we'll get 3. If we do B minus A, we'll still get 3. You understand? So if we do B minus C, we'll get the number. If we do C minus B, we'll get the number. That's why we are using the absolute value, so that all integers are returned back as positive integers. So basically, that's why we are doing the absolute value. So now our variable name for the absolute value of B minus A is U. Our variable name for the absolute value of C minus B is V. And our variable name for the absolute value of C minus A is W. So what do? It said to return the minimum of these differences. So what do? We now return the minimum of u, v, and w to get our function. Now, let me show you. If I do a minus b, right, and here I do b minus c, and here I do a minus c, because I've put the absolute value here, absolute ABS function here, it's still going to give me 2. As you can see, it's still going to give me 2 as my answer. But say for example now I remove ABS in all these functions, right, and I remove, it's going to give me a, can you see what it's giving me now? It's going to give me a totally different answer, because a minus b is 3, b minus c is minus 5, a minus c is minus 2, and the list of minus of all of them is minus 5. Now if I put in b minus a, right, and I put in c minus b, I get another totally different answer because of the order of the way I arranged it. So that's why we just use the absolute value, so that we just get what we are doing. We know that, okay, all the minimum values are going to be positive integers unless otherwise stated. But for now, we were asked to use the absolute value so that we don't get to mix things up. That's it about that. So we have returned our minimum of our u, our v, and w, which is 2. So b minus a, now that's 5 minus 8 is minus 3. Absolute value of minus 3 is 3. C minus b, that's 10 minus 5 is 5. And a minus c, 8 minus 10 is minus 2, but absolute value of minus 2 is 2. So what's the minimum between minimum of 3, 5, and 2? That's 2. So that's what our function has asked us to do, and that's what we have done. So any question on this part? Okay. Please, I would like to know, like, if there's no question, just tell me there's no question. Then I will know that I'm not talking to myself. I don't trust my network here.
Yes, you can continue. There's no question.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much. Now, question 8. Define a function taking an integer parameter. Function will return the square root of this parameter. Hint: square root math dash 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 math dot square root. Yes, so now, like I said, line upon line, precept upon precept. So first of all, define a function that takes in an integer parameter. So before we even do the import math, we've not seen that we want to import the math yet. The first question is that we should define the square root. So SQR, when you see SQR, you're like, oh, square root, fine. Then it takes in an integer parameter, and integer, that means just one parameter, and what will it do? It will return the square root of this parameter. Now, unlike ABS and mean that are inbuilt, they are inbuilt Python function, they are just inbuilt, they are just there for Python. SQRT is also inbuilt, but you need to call in, is a function under a function, right? So you need to import a module before you can get that function. And now that module that we have to import is called the math module. So unlike ABS, where you can just put ABS, there's no anything dot ABS here. ABS, you can just import it. There's nothing dot mean here. You can just import mean. If you do the same thing for this young man called square root here, you will get an error. Straight up, no time. Can you see name square root is not defined? No time, you get an error. Do you understand? So we have to import a module called math module. The module is called math module. Now that's where, under that math module, that's where we can find the square root function. And so you do math dot square root, right? So see now, import math square root of n. So you return. Now there are two ways by which you can do this particular thing. Either you just do import math the square root, or let me try, or you do for math abi import square root, something like that. The long I did this, I think then let me see. Yeah, it did not work. It did not work. Oh, of this maths, not maths. Okay, all right. So either you do import math, just math. Then if you want to do import, why I prefer this particular method is that if you do, if you do import math, that means everywhere, maybe you have a very long code to write. Everywhere you go, like on that code, you have to do math the square root. Yeah, you run it, math, putting the math before the square root and put the dot. But if you just do once for math, import square root, that's SQLT. If you do this one once in all your code, I'm sorry, my network, like I said, my network, I don't trust it, so I'm very sorry. All right, so I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, but it's
All right.
breaking and coming back.
I'm sorry about my network. I mean, Ibadan, I know this Ibadan people in their network. I don't understand. All right, so now, like I was saying, the benefit of using from math import square root, even if you have 1,000 lines of code, anyway, you just put square root, square root, it will run. But if you just import math and you run it, if you just import maths, and you are using your line of code, you have to put math the square root, math the square root, math the square root, math the square root, math the square root. You understand? So, but that from math import square root can just help you run through all the code like that. But we know what this function math the square. So what you to do is you just return your square root of your function. So once you call that number and you put your function SQL, it's gonna run. That's that about importing maths. That's question 8. Now, question 9. Okay, question 9. So define a function taking a numeric parameter. Again, a numeric parameter. So you know that it's a number. It's the number that is going to take in. Then what will the function do? The function will return the logarithm of this function. That's when you know that it's actually a numeric, because you cannot take logarithm of banana or logarithm of mango or anything. It has to be a number, unless there's another new invention where you can take logarithm of a string. But for now, we know that we only take logarithm of numbers. So the function will return the logarithm of this function, or of this number. Should be of this number, I think. Then hint, logarithm equals math.log something. Now, once again, we define our function and give it a name, get logarithm, meaning that when someone sees your code, it knows that you are trying to work on something that has to do with logarithm. Then you I'm a bit distracted.
No, it's okay. I think you can just go ahead. You can still hear.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. All right, so def get logarithm, and so what will it do? It will return math.log n, just like square root. Log is also a function under the module called math. It's not like ABS or main that is just a function on its own. This one too is called under the the module called math. So you have to import math again. Then you use the math.log. There's dash. So he gave us ARTVION gave us a hint here. So I asterisked it so that it will not just, I just turned it into a comment. It was a hint that I gave to us, so I turned it into a comment. So when you are done, you have to use the print. Actually, you can use the print, but you really do not have to use the print unless you are printing something after it. But if you're not printing anything after it, you don't have to use the print. So you call your function get logarithm of 12. It gives you logarithm of 12. Get log of 100. Log of 100 is supposed to be, it gives you log of 100. Okay. I need to know what base this log is in. All right, so basically it's similar to this square root here. Similar to this square root. This math log is similar. So what you just do, like you did math.square root, you also do math.log and you get your logarithm. So that's question 9. Now to the last question. Glory to God, hallelujah. Define a function taking 2 numeric parameters. Then
Thank you. So wait. So I think some persons are raising up their hand.
Okay.
Just before you get to the next question, well done so far.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, Molade, you're doing an exceptional work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now the last question you just solved that had something to do with log.
Yes.
Yeah, even though my math is a little rusty. Sorry, log 100.
Yes.
I saw 4 point something.
It's supposed to be 2 bar.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why I said I think I need to know the base of this log.
Okay.
I don't think it's to log. I don't think it's to base 10.
Okay.
I've not tried to do it. I think it's in log 2. So maybe one thing we can do is maybe during the lectures we can just Google the logarithm on Python is to base what. Because if it's to base 10, I know it's supposed to give us 2. But once I saw the 4.6, I was like, it's probably not to base 10. Yeah, so I'm going to check that out.
Go on, my friend.
Thank you.
She's going to check it back. I'm so tired.
Hello.
So any other question? Yes, sir.
Can you follow me to my room so I can
Yeah,
shower?
the question
Okay.
I had is actually very similar to that of Dr. Ford. I just asked a question. I just asked the
Yes.
question, right? When I was doing it, I also
Okay.
noticed that log,
No,
when you run
actually,
it,
Yes.
when you try to cross check on the maybe on the
I'm
calculator,
still
it's not
very
correct.
scared because of
So what I did
Yes.
in my own assignment was to include 10, like log 10 of n before I ran it,
Okay.
and then the answer was actually correct. If you try it, you will see that it will be correct.
Okay, so I can put
Just
10 here, but
yes,
okay.
yes. If you run it,
That's
you
right.
yes,
Yeah. Makes sense. That's nice. So that means
yes,
that log there is not to base 10.
yes. Now the next
Yes.
comment I want to direct to ARTVION. When next is asking this kind of question, you should be specific what base we should actually use to calculate the log, because someone can get confused and say, when I try to like calculate the log of 100 on my calculator, the answer is 2. But when I'm doing it here, the answer is 4. How come?
Let's go together.
Adrian, are you here? Can you hear me?
You like it?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry about that. I think it's just part
It's
of.
all
I
right.
did not really observe it. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll take note of that.
She
All right.
stopped by the house
All right.
to
Thank you.
have a
Yes.
shower and
So,
Thank
clean
you.
her
so
food.
thank you very much. So now we can see that the logarithm here, math log for Python is not to base 2.
Yes.
So I think what we can do now is just Google it and
Why
find
is
out
it?
what base is in.
Oh, wait. Is it what
But
happened to
thank you for
other
the log 10 stuff. Now that I'm doing it now, it's giving me 2. Okay. Thank you.
I forgot
Thank you
when
so
you
much.
asked me to accomplish
All right, now to question 10. define a function taking two numeric parameters. Let's assume these numbers are two sides of a right angle. The function the hypotenuse of this triangle. The function will return the hypotenuse of this triangle. So, basic maths, hypotenuse square equals to opposite square plus adjacent square, where the hypotenuse are the longest side of a right angle triangle. So, this one, so we are defining our function as hypotenuse. So we know that we are looking for the hypotenuse of these two. Let's assume that these two numbers are the two sides of a right angle triangle. So our formula from secondary school and primary school of a right angle triangle is hypotenuse square equals to hypotenuse square equals to opposite square plus adjacent square. So that's, I just named my hypotenuse square to be hypotenuse. I just gave it a variable name, hypotenuse. So and this is the way to write what's it called, square roots in Python. It's, you use two asterisks. One asterisk is multiplication, two asterisks means raised to power of something. So we have the equation here, a square plus b square. So what I did, so you return, of course, now to get your hypotenuse gone, you use square root of hypotenuse. Now this function round is to, in case your number is not an integer, maybe it's like a long float, what it just does is to help. But this one, we are not getting any roundup because our numbers that we called, once you do 3 square plus 4 square, that will give you 25. 25 square root of 25 is 5. It's not a float, it's not a decimal. Let us say I print, maybe I do 40 in this one now. Okay, because I've already rounded it up, let me remove round. I don't know if 40 and 15. Okay, so you see, so this function round here gives you an integer number, just like that. So let us say, you know, this 43 gave us 42 point something. So if you put a comma here and you put maybe like 3, what it does, that it will help you round up your number to 3 decimal places. Sorry, 2 decimal places. So that's 3 plus 7 2. So it helps you round up your number. Then if you put 4, I'm coming now. Let me round it up to plenty. I'm coming on to check something. Okay, because of this 0 0, let me try 5 decimal places. So let's say 6 decimal places. So can you see? So the round here, this round function in under our return, it helps us to round up our number to a whole number. If there is no comma here, it takes everything to whole numbers. But if you want to specify your number of decimal points, or if you give it for easily, let's say 6, you understand, it helps you round it up to the number of decimal points that you want. So that's all round. So you have to specify. So if you want 2 decimal places, you put 2 here. It helps you round it up to 2 decimal places. Why this 5.0 is because after 0 is still 0, so it doesn't, you understand? So that's what the round function does, just helps you round it up. So we do our square root, then we call our numbers hypotenuse 3 4, it will give you 5, of course. 7 24, this Pythagoras triple, so 3 4 5 is a Pythagoras triple. 7 24 25 is a Pythagoras triple. 40 15 is not Pythagoras triple, is fake one. It's just, I used it to explain the function of the round in this code. So basically that's our question 10, the solution to our question 10. So thank you for having me. Thank you so much. If you have any question, please direct it to ARTVION. don't direct it to me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well done, Omolade. I think this has been a wonderful session. You actually practically took us from the little we do to the bigger ones. That's nice. And you played it all with your other examples. Like if it doesn't, if you try this out, it's gonna do this. And you brought in so many concepts in it. Thank you very much. You have done a fantastic job. And
Thank you,
yeah, you're well done. Okay. So I think they have questions. They said they should direct the questions to me. There are certain things
yes,
I'm saying. Well done, well done. Okay, guys. Any other questions so far, or anything outside what you have done tonight? I think before we even ask question, please you can put in the appreciation emoji, like to clap for her, appreciate her in any way. Because me myself, I'm listening to her. I'm like, wonderful, wonderful, well done. All right. So, guys, any questions, any observations? Thanks a lot. This is deeply easier than the first than we first saw. Yes, exactly. She made it very simple. And if it's someone like me that is doing this, the kind of things I'll bring in here. Okay. This month, how we want to take survival. Okay, sorry about that. We are going to survive it. There's no way out. I think one of the questions that I see, most of the interview questions I'm seeing, I'm trying to bring into you guys to help out is most of them are mathematical related, because sometimes when it comes to Python like this and it has to do with artificial intelligence and the rest, we really need to have an idea of mathematics and so many things, except your even a concept in coding, especially all these higher programming languages, especially the ones that are very popular, you need an aspect of mathematics. I think that's why the most interview questions are always coming with that. What's going okay? Okay. Okay, someone is saying math is not my calling, but you just try to find a way to adapt to it, because if you're really going to be a badass programmer, you are going to